Hello, and welcome to another video from 3.5 Archive. Today we're going to be doing our 38th D&D 3.5 Prestige class review. We're going to be looking at the Invisible Blade Prestige class from the Complete Warrior sourcebook. This is a Prestige class that specializes in the use of daggers. They only fight with daggers. The description for the Prestige class describes a scene in which a gladiator faces down one of these foolish-seeming warriors dressed only in light armor or no armor at all, and as the gladiator unsheaths his sword in glistening full-plate armor, or perhaps spiked full-plate armor, with crusted blood stains of the blood of dead enemies, the invisible blade simply throws on a devilish grin and whips his dagger around, ready for a fight. Invisible blades seem mad to fight with no armor and simply a dagger, but they prefer to use cunning and guile and plenty of feinting and finesse in order to defeat their opponents in combat. So this is a good prestige class for rogue-type characters who want to use a dagger and nothing but a dagger. To become an invisible blade, you're going to need 8 ranks in bluff and 6 ranks in sense motive. For feats, you're going to need far shot, point-blank shot, and weapon focus in either the dagger, the kukuri, or the punching dagger. And then finally, you must defeat a worthy opponent in single combat using one or more daggers, kukuris, or punching daggers in any combination as your only weapons. So, the requirements for this prestige class are 2 skills: bluff, which you're going to probably want to have either rogue levels or swashbuckler levels to get access to for as a class skill. Sense motive, you only need 6 ranks, but that's still going to require you to have it as a class skill if you want to get into this after 5th level. And then you're going to need far shot, point blank shot, and weapon focus with a dagger or substitute equivalent. The prerequisites for this prestige class are a bit weird. The flavor one makes sense, although it's a bit vague on what quantifies or qualifies as a worthy opponent. If it's a particular challenge rating or that sort of thing. As a dungeon master, I would rule that any creature challenge rating at least 2 lower than you. So 2 lower than your character level or higher would be adequate to defeat for the purposes of this prestige class. So if you're a 5th level rogue or fighter rogue coming into this and you were to defeat, say, an ogre in single combat with nothing but daggers, that would probably qualify. Either way, however the dungeon master wants to allow that requirement, the others are a little bit more unusual. This prestige class really doesn't do much for throwing daggers, but 2 of the feats required involve throwing them. It's a little bit strange, and it seems almost like the designers maybe just wanted to avoid making this prestige class too easy to get into. Other feats such as combat expertise or maybe more so weapon finesse that would make more sense as prerequisites just aren't here. So you are going to be paying a little bit in the way of feats. They aren't useless feats. Point blank shot and far shot are going to be very helpful if you do intend to throw daggers. Weapon focus in the dagger makes the most sense. And the skill requirements are a little bit difficult, so I would rate this prestige class's requirements as moderately restrictive. You are definitely going to have to build toward this, so to speak. If you want to get into this as purely a rogue, you're going to have to play a human. And if you want to get into this as some other race, and the way that I would recommend doing it even if you are playing a human, would be to take 2 levels of fighter and then 3 levels of rogue. This will give you access to weapon finesse and 2-weapon fighting, both of which are very vital feats for rogues. And then it will still allow you time to take far shot, point blank shot, and then the all-important weapon focus in a dagger, kukuri, or punching dagger. You could consider swashbuckler levels, but the thing is, for a prestige class that's going to be based off of sneak attack, it's probably going to be better to keep your levels as much as you can in rogue, and then fighter for the feats that you're going to need. So as an invisible blade, you're going to have a d6 hit die, a full base attack bonus, and a good reflex save. You're going to have 4+ intelligence modifier skill points, and you're going to have a pretty standard complement of rogue skills. You will have to cut down a little bit relative to your previous rogue levels, but that's alright. As long as you're able to keep up your tumble and bluff, you'll probably do fairly well, along with, of course, your stealth skills and perception skills. The Invisible Blade is a 5-level prestige class. At level 1, you get dagger sneak attack plus 1d6. So this basically gives you sneak attack, but only with a dagger, or, kukuri or punching dagger. And you get this, again, another d6 of this at 3rd level and another d6 at 5th level. So this is going to improve your sneak attack if you already have it. If you don't have it, this is going to give you sneak attack. So if you did come in here for some reason as a pure fighter or swashbuckler, or other non-rogue class, then you would get some sneak attack, which is good because there's going to be some focus on feinting to go along with this prestige class. And this does, of course, stack with regular sneak attack dice that you would have from rogue. You're also going to get unfettered defense at 1st level. This means that while you're wearing no armor and you're armed with 1 or more daggers, or kukuris or punching daggers, you're going to get to add 1 point of intelligence bonus per invisible blade class level to your armor class. It doesn't give this a particular type, this bonus to armor class. Since you lose it when flat-footed, it can be assumed to basically be a dodge bonus, but as per the rules here, it's untyped, so it definitely stacks with everything else. And this is going to require you, of course, to have a good intelligence score, which as a rogue you're probably going to, but keep in mind that you're going to need good charisma for feinting, at least decent strength for your melee weapon damage, good dexterity probably as a rogue, good constitution for surviving in melee combat, and now good intelligence. So really you're going to need 5 of the 6 ability scores to at least be decent. So you are stretching yourself a little bit thin here. If you rolled very well on your ability scores, then this class feature is going to be fantastic. But if you had to go with point buy or something, this might only be increasing your armor class by 1 or 2 points. Something to keep in mind for an otherwise fantastic benefit, especially for a character that's not going to be wearing any armor at all. You're going to have to depend on bracers of armor. At level 2, you gain the Bleeding Wound feature. Whenever you do a sneak attack with a dagger, you can sacrifice a d6 of your sneak attack damage to apply wounding to the attack. So basically, your target takes 1 point of damage per round thereafter. And of course, if you deal multiple wounds in this way for multiple sneak attacks, you can give them cumulative blood loss. 2 wounds will do 2 points per round, 3 wounds for 3 points per round, and so on. And it can be stopped by a DC 15 heal check or any cure spell or anything like that. And of course, creatures that are immune to the sneak attack damage are going to be immune to this as well. Unfortunately, Bleeding Wound, as cool and flavorful of an ability as it is, really isn't very good. You're losing a d6 of sneak attack, which is going to be 3.5 points of damage on average, for a theoretically infinite amount of damage over time, assuming they don't run into any healing for themselves, or don't take the time to, of course, make an untrained heal check on themselves. It's going to take at least 4 rounds for this to pay off. So unless that combat's going to last 4 rounds with that creature still standing and doing nothing to stop the bleeding, I guess it could eat up their action if they did try to stop it, but more than likely they're going to focus on killing you first. This is going to do a point of damage per round, so yeah, after 4 rounds this will have been equivalent to will have been a little bit better than the die of sneak attack that you sacrificed in order to deal this attack. While it can be nice to stack bleeding, and it can be satisfying to do, you are giving up, again, a lot of damage as you go on by giving up that d6 of sneak attack, especially if you're getting multiple sneak attacks. So this is definitely a cool feature, but it's not a very strong one, and actually in a lot of ways you're hurting yourself by using it. If you didn't have to give up the sneak attack damage in order to do this, it would be a lot better. It would then just be a direct benefit. Or, if it did a d6 of damage per round, then it perhaps would be maybe be too strong. But as is, it's not a very good ability, but it definitely is a cool one. And for an NPC villain Invisible Blade, it can be quite satisfying to see the dread on your players' faces when they realize that their characters are starting to lose hit points profusely. At level 3, you're going to gain Uncanny Feint. This allows you to feint in combat as a move action rather than a standard action. And then at level 5, this improves so that you can feint in combat as a free action. An Invisible Blade can use Uncanny Feint only when armed with a dagger, kukuri, or punching dagger, and only 1 Uncanny Feint can be made per round. So even though you can do it as a free action, even if you could insert a free action feint in between each of your full attacks, you're only going to be able to get in 1 of these per round. Now that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing necessarily, but the thing with feinting is that even if you're fully invested in it, and you have good charisma, and you have, full ranks in it and everything, monsters are going to get to add their base attack bonus to their sense motive check in combat, which some would say is a little bit unfair. And there is something to be said for that, given that even with all this investment in a rather unorthodox fighting style, you're still probably going to have maybe at best a 50% chance, especially given how much hit dice for monsters tend to exceed that of players. You're only really going to have an advantage of +3 for the amount that your max ranks in the skill exceed your hit dice. So unfortunately, feinting just isn't a very good strategy, and the fact that you can only do this once per round, even when you can do it as a free action, means that flanking with 2-weapon fighting and a couple of daggers is going to be so much better for dealing out damage. This is going to be a great ability for when you're caught by yourself and you don't want to give up your full attack in order to, do at least one sneak attack with a feint. As feinting only applies to the next attack that you make, you're not going to be able to make multiple sneak attacks in a round with this, which is really unfortunate. And while perhaps it maybe makes sense for balance reasons, perhaps, it really does kind of sink this feature in the appeal that it would otherwise have. And then at level 4, you gain Feint Mastery. When you're armed with a dagger, Kukuri, or punching dagger, you become so sure of your ability to mislead opponents that you can take 10 on all bluff checks while feinting in combat. So this is basically skill mastery. You can take 10 even when you're under stress or in combat, and you can do it on your bluff checks to feint in combat, which would be nice, but unfortunately a lot of the time that's probably going to fail. And while it does make you more reliable, actually taking 10 puts you at a little bit of a numerical disadvantage on average. Only by 0.5, but still, you need all the help you can get when you're trying to pull off such an unusual style of fighting. So, this prestige class is very cool conceptually. The idea of an unarmored, dagger-wielding fighter or rogue is definitely one that fits in with a lot of classic fantasy tropes. I use this prestige class for the head of my Thieves Guild that I created when I was a teenager as a dungeon master. And I really like this prestige class a lot, but unfortunately, it doesn't have as much to offer you as you would hope. Feinting, despite this prestige class's maybe attempts to fix it, is still a subpar strategy. Oftentimes, you're going to be able to get into flanking between a good tumble skill, maybe boots of striding and springing if you must, or some other kind of mobility aid for your character. This will maybe help you for the one round before you can get into flanking, but if you're able to flank consistently, then this prestige class is going to be pretty much obsolete. Yes, it's going to increase your sneak attack, and if you go into this as a full rogue, then you will get a little bit ahead of sneak attack. You're going to have 66 sneak attack by level 10, which is going to put you a little bit ahead of the curve, but it's just not going to be enough to really justify this prestige class. The fact that it only lets you do one feint per round, which perhaps maybe is balanced or to keep the prestige class grounded, but it really doesn't help you very much when you're going to be losing out on the idea of this, lone dagger fighter fighting an opponent in the arena that the description text for the prestige class seems to evoke. The bleeding wound feature is unfortunately just subpar, and the feinting and unfettered defense are going to rely on, in the former case, for unfettered defense, it's going to rely on you having an exceptional intelligence alongside all your other ability scores. And in the case of Uncanny Feint, it's going to be good for getting one sneak attack off maybe a round, or maybe half the time if you're lucky. But flanking is going to do sneak attack damage 100% of the time, and on multiple attacks. So if you can get into flanking, you can do a truly devastating amount of damage to your enemy. With this, you can be a little bit better as a single-handed fighter, as a lone fighter, but you're not going to be any better as part of a D&D adventuring party, which is going to be what the experience is going to be for probably 95% of players, if not far more. So overall, I'd have to give this prestige class 5 stars for concept, but only 2 stars for execution. While it is great and it is entertaining to take, and while you can have fun with this prestige class, it's not going to be making you more powerful as a character. It's going to be giving you some fun and enjoyable abilities to use, but it's going to be maybe a small bump in power for improving your sneak attack, and that's about it. You could get that from taking a level in Spell Thief if you wanted to. So that's going to be about it for this D&D 3.5 Prestige Class review. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and so on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on 3.5 Archive.